Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It is 11:13 at 12:02. We'll go ahead and start the policy committee meeting. First up, we'll just make note that Adam, Andre, Julia, and Julia Ingersoll and Ed Scarrow are present. Going ahead, and a couple of meetings ago, we asked Jody to start a project which was do Norma's desk. She's completed that, and we have the document here. This was in relationship of doing an analysis of the Neola policies and the school board policies, and I'll let Jody do a summary of this. To give you an idea, the policy books were approximately 600 total pages. Is that right, Jody?
I don't know total pages, but I know there's about 270 policies total that we have. So what I did was I took all of our policies and reviewed them to check, are they Elkhorn specific, meeting that standard of the 10% that the Neola rep threw out in terms of, will their legal department cover a policy if you deviate more than 10%? So you'll see that I have either said that they're Elkhorn specific or not Elkhorn specific, and if Neola has an equivalent. So for example, if you look at policy number 120, you'll see that there's a Neola equivalent. However, I felt that our Elkhorn policy was greater than that 10% deviation. So that's why I have both of them marked as yes. And then you'll see I have lots of notes in that column, just some observations that I made as going through there on certain recommendations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
This
that
is,
was a huge task.
Quite a task here.
So in here, I didn't see, is there somewhere that it indicates like what is the percentage of our policies that are Elkhorn specific? Like how many policies are?
Yeah, great question. I don't have that in here because I feel like if we make some changes to our policies, a lot of those yeses could switch to nos.
Okay, so they're close.
They're close, but with some modifications, taking perhaps some language from other districts, we could certainly meet that Neola threshold.
Yeah, and then how many policies does Neola have? We don't even have a policy for.
I think we asked that question when the rep was here, and I want to say their book, depending on the size of the district, average districts have about 300 policies, and I think their manual may go up to, for some reason, 600 is sticking out in my mind that they have those available as options to districts.
Okay, so not that we would have to adopt all of everything that they're on. Okay.
When looking at this, and Jody and I just figured the number of our policies, and I think maybe looking at it from an organizational standpoint, philosophically, I think the board needs to decide is how often should a policy be reviewed and revised? One approach, which has really been kind of the approach we've been following, is as needed. We follow the WASB legal updates, those memos, going to the legal seminars when they bring those items up, or when it's brought to our attention, or we see something that, okay, this should be updated. We haven't followed a process of, every policy should be reviewed and revised every 10 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever. I mean, we could, if the policy committee or the board felt like, yes, every policy should be revised, identifying that time frame, and then looking at what is practical and reasonable for the board to do it. The advantage, I think, from something like Neola is you do have a legal team who reviews and potentially revises the policies on an annual basis.
Right.
So they're always reviewing the policies. For us, when we looked at
reviewing to comply with state law.
to make sure that they're in compliance, to make sure they're still relevant, and then they'll submit on a quarterly basis, here's the recommended revisions. Now, the work that the policy committee would then have to do, and ultimately the board, is you take those recommended revisions and you need to go through those. And quarterly, I believe in talking, it's something worth following up, but I believe in talking to the Lake Geneva superintendent, I believe like this last quarter, it was around 20+ policies that they had recommended revisions to, and they had to go through and either accept the revisions or, not accept them or make modifications. But if we were to do it on our own, I think we looked at just if you were to do an every 4-year rotation, we would have to look at, was it 20 a month?
20 a month.
20 a month that would have to be reviewed, revised as a policy committee. So so then you look at, okay, well, it's 10 years or as needed more reasonable because, So, or going to a system like Neola where you have at least legal reviewing them and then making recommended revisions. It's up to, I'm agnostic on the topic. I think it's really whatever the board's most comfortable with in that regard.
I think maybe we bring it to the board and share all of Jody's notes where we're at. I mean, there's a ton of them. I would like to, I went through it a little bit and then realized it was 24 pages or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But maybe we get full board involved at this point so that we can have time to review them in detail. I mean, the three of us going through all these right now and giving it to the board. I mean, why wouldn't we just bring it to the board and say that's all kind of that makes sense?
I guess, is there a way for us to look at, so just as take a sampling of Neola's policy, and maybe something that where ours is very specific, it's Elkhorn specific, but Neola has a policy on that as well. Could we just take a few samples of like, what does ours say, what does theirs say, and see, so that I can visually see where they're differing? It's hard for me to judge. I mean, maybe their policy is great and you know what I mean? Like it's hard for me to judge. Do I want to, do we want to make this huge change? And what are we losing by, what are we losing? Because a lot of the changes that we've made to policy have been intentional, like we've made those changes for a reason. If we change back to Neola, how does our policy change? Like I need to see a few examples of that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So maybe for the next meeting, bring 4 or 5 examples to compare, or we could even share those out beforehand. And I think if we really boiled it down, what are truly unique policies to us? There would be policies that spoke to specific programming, like our lobby system is a really unique policy to the Elkhorn Area School District.
Right.
So that's probably going to deviate from whatever Neola has.
But we still have the ability to keep those specific ones, right? It's just that
they're just not covered under their legal guarantee.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, but policy like taking the college credits and the amount that the school board pays for.
We pay.
Well, ours is probably different than what Neola's is because they probably put down the minimum.
State standard,
And we cover as long as it's in the pathway, we don't have a limit. But that wouldn't deviate by more than 10%.
Yeah.
So we would be still covered on that, but that could be unique. So I think when we look at it, probably the vast majority of them are just legal boilerplate type language, and then there's those handful of unique to Elkhorn type policies.
Yeah.
But I think getting some examples for the next meeting. So what your comment was, Adam, I think it would be good just for the productivity of the board as a whole if the committee kind of had at least a loose recommendation. Here's what we think looking at it, but would like the board as a whole to consider and see what your thought is.
Because ultimately, we could ultimately, we could just adopt Neola and then also adopt in all of our policies. And then over time, give us the ability to make those comparisons, to look at the ones where there's differing and say, okay, well, maybe the Neola policy is great and we can, we don't need to keep our specific language. Does that make sense too? Can we do that? And
I
then
think I
kind of
recall you
back
said it was
into-
about a year process. to
Yeah, so
go
we
through
can,
that.
so we can kind of back into their policies, as we can review them. Is that, does that make sense
It
too?
does, yeah. Yeah, and for some reason, I'm remembering a 2-year process.
Wasn't too.
But I think
Okay,
it-
so it is something that it is expected that we're gonna have to take a couple of years to.
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes,
all right,
yes. Because it's not gonna be just a blanket adoption and then
Yeah,
we
yeah.
go back and, okay, now we need to revise
No,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
number of them.
okay, okay.
Can you refresh my memory on the 10% thing? So it's, because I love this hybrid model, right?
So if
it's
our
theirs.
verbiage deviates by more than 10% of theirs.
Yep.
Then it's not
It's
covered
not
It's
covered,
not
so
by their
for-
legal guarantee.
for a particular policy.
So
Okay.
if we happen to be sued related to one of our policies, they would represent us
Sure.
unless our verbiage deviated by more than 10%.
Yep, okay.
But then I would say we also have our school
Yeah.
insurance
Mhm.
liability. that would cover that.
And so certain policies, we could say, you know what? We're solid on this policy, even though you're not gonna
Mhm.
cover it, we know we want this policy and
Yeah.
we're gonna include it. In other cases, we might be like 15-20% away, but we can look at the language and decide, yeah.
Yeah, and you'll notice, like we have a lot of what we call rules,
Uh-huh.
in my opinion, they're just another policy speaking to the same
Yep,
original policy.
yes,
So I've been combining those as we revise things into
Mhm.
one, so like my recommendation would be like, let's combine all of those rules and make
Yeah.
it one policy, and then I haven't seen any other district who uses Neola have exhibits, which
Oh.
are essentially internal forms.
Mhm.
I don't think those need to be
Eliminate those,
part of
yeah.
board policy.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable
Yeah,
knowing that we can take that couple of years
Yeah,
to
yeah.
really dig in. I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable about moving that direction.
I agree. And I love being able to be hybrid.
Mhm.
You know, if there's something particular to Alcorn, it's not like we can't do it.
Right,
I'm a fan.
yeah.
Ed, did you have any thoughts?
No, I just, like you say, I think it's a huge time commitment, for the entire, board, as we make this journey, but I think I'm still in favor of us doing it. So, but I'd like to get, 100% board buy-in,
Yep.
and potentially making the switch. So,
All right, so do we want to bring it to the policy committee one more time before putting it on the agenda for the full board? Or do you want it to go to the full board with some examples of here's what a Neola policy looks like, here's what
Yeah, I
our
mean, I like
comparables.
that idea.
I think it's full board ready.
Yeah, I
Say
think
it's
so
a full
too.
board, okay,
Yeah.
then we'd also want to get cost proposal
Yes,
and have, I forgot, who was the gentleman's name?
I don't remember his name either.
I don't know, I can
Mark?
picture it.
I know.
I'll have it in my email
All
somewhere,
right,
but.
so we can follow up with him. It's probably best to have him just come and present the proposal to the board and here's some examples.
Mhm.
So,
And let's reiterate the time. Is it 1 year, 2 year, how long do we
Yeah.
have? We can-
So
I'm sure
he
everybody will be
might
worried
not,
about
just
that.
because of the timeline, he might not be able to make it to the very next board meeting.
Sure,
Sure,
But
yeah.
we'll get it scheduled as soon as
either
possible.
December, yeah,
Mhm.
or
Well,
January.
yeah,
We only have one in December.
right, so it would have to be the first one in December, right?
We'll check his calendar and get it
Yeah.
at the next available one. That he's available for. All right. Anything else on that? All right, thank you, Jody, for all your work.
Yes,
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Let's
George,
see that.
seriously,
that's
thank you.
huge.
All right,
And it'll be a good reference point for future. you know, like when we do start going through, it'll be a really good reference point.
187, public participation at the board meetings. This policy was referred back to the policy committee. The language we added is in blue there. And this was based on discussions that was at the board meeting in regards to the public comment. Let's see. And then we'll show, this just says participants are required to register their intention to participate in the notice public comment portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting by completing a card with their name, address, and issue to speak to. The order in which the board president is given the registration card by a participant will determine the order in which each participant is allowed to speak. One public comment per person is allowed at each meeting. Registration cards may be submitted after the start of the public comment portion of the meeting, so long as time remains. Priority will be given to participants who have submitted a registration card prior to the start of a meeting. This is probably a very similar when I've gone to like a city council meeting or county or to the state legislature to, you know, make a comment, you fill out.
Okay, so this is something that's not uncommon, right?
Well, it would be
In-
new to us, but
right,
it's
new to
not
us, but-
uncommon in public meetings.
Okay. When I read this, it's been a while since we've talked about this. And I honestly don't remember what was the reasoning behind wanting to go to the comment card and filling that out?
Is this Ed?
So, yeah, Ed could perhaps speak to it, but if I recall the rationale, and it hasn't happened in our school district, to my knowledge.
Okay,
Area school districts have run into this issue, so I think it was just being proactive
okay,
in that, like if you look at, this is what the public comment registration card would look like. And it would have the meeting date, person wishing to speak, speaker, address, that's just to verify residency. Because
Yep.
per policy, they need to be a resident or a parent
parent,
of a school district student. So a parent of an open enrolled student could speak.
sure,
And then issue to speak to, and then it's just a signature line, I certify I'm a resident or a parent. Districts in that Milwaukee area and Burlington ran into their meetings being bombarded by non-residents,
got it,
speaking on topics that they were passionate about, but they weren't residents of the school district and were
and didn't have
eating up their
students
public
involved.
comment
Yeah.
time, so.
And so, yeah, I can see the value of it, and then it becomes public record, you know, that, yeah,
I think it's better to have something in place prior to ever,
sure,
hopefully we never have a circumstance like those other districts had to deal with.
right,
But I think it was Wanakee who ended up having hundreds of people wanting to do public comment in a meeting. This at least gives you a process of
okay,
speakers
So
will be
it's
in
more
order of the tickets
proactive.
received and
okay,
then they know the rules of
okay.
What's on the form currently?
just the sign-in sheet.
It's just,
There's no address or verification, nothing
There
like
is
that.
an
just-
Is there an
address
address?
section, and they have to mark that if they're a resident or not.
Do people usually fill the address piece out?
Some do, some don't.
We don't really monitor whether
Yeah,
they.
Yeah.
I was curious what
Sign in.
currently is. When I read this, I don't see anything, there's no
but that's more
limit.
for attendance than it is to
Correct.
register to speak,
Correct.
Right.
yeah,
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Okay,
That's,
okay.
that's to
Thank
say
you.
that they're here, and you don't have to be a resident to
Right.
attend.
Right, right.
so everybody that comes in the door signs this
They're
sheet?
supposed to, not everyone
everybody
does,
does.
but
Right,
for
you're
the
supposed
most
to,
part,
okay,
yes.
so that has nothing to do with public comment,
No.
Correct.
okay, thank you for.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think for the board president, and I don't know how you feel, Julia, but sometimes it might be a little awkward, okay, anyone for public comment, and
Right,
I think it allows them to, you would know, yep,
yep,
I have a public comment, here's,
got it,
but
and this
again,
was,
it's.
this was also, once we start, this also gives the opportunity to hand in a card afterwards, and I'm actually a fan of this. In
Yeah,
no
I
way
think
is this
it's talked about
limiting
this.
free speech or
No.
limiting anything in any way.
no,
It's just, it's more of a procedural thing to have
I think it's procedural.
documented comments, it goes on goes in the, goes on record. But I don't, when I read this, I don't see it limiting anything at all. You can, it's just a
I
different
don't
procedure
either.
to public comment.
Right,
And it gives the board president the opportunity to,
yeah, because it
See
even
what's-
says registration cards may be submitted after the start of the public comment
yeah,
portion.
right,
So long as time remains. And the priority will be given to participants who have submitted prior to the start of the meeting. So if somebody shows up late or a couple minutes late, they still have the opportunity to fill out a card.
Yeah.
And okay. I guess I'm fine with it.
I kind of like that it gives you a little bit more, the card thing is great, because you gotta put your name, you put your address, it gives you, it's not, nobody can come in here and start stopping off or anything like that, this gives a little bit more validity to it.
Yeah, on the card, I certify that I am could we be more specific about a resident, that I am an Elkhorn School
Area
District
school
resident?
district resident?
Because otherwise, are you a resident of what? You know what I mean?
Or parent of the district.
Or, yeah, I'm an Elkhorn resident, Elkhorn School District resident, or a parent of an EASD student. Yeah,
How does a Elkhorn employee fit into that? Because a teacher could speak also.
oh, that's true.
Oh,
Who is not a resident.
that's true.
That is
So we
true.
need to
So we'll
open that
add
up.
and or a parent and or employee.
Yeah, do we wanna have like a little
Parent
checkbox,
or,
which
yeah.
one, like what category they fit in? You know what I mean? Like if there's 3 different scenarios there. Like just a
I
little,
certify
That's a
that
good
I am
catch.
I am right. And maybe they're all 3, maybe they're 1, maybe they're 2, whatever, but it's just a checkbox that kind of covers those 3 scenarios.
Jason, did you say an employee too? Can an employee,
Yes,
okay,
yes,
that would cover everyone.
got it, okay.
yeah, that's why, otherwise that sentence gets really long.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, here's the categories right here. Let's see, counted by
And employees.
residents.
Yep.
Yep, and, okay.
Families of district students and employees.
Yeah, I just was really struggling to remember how this all came up, but thank you for reminding me.
I think it was when we were going, if we were gonna move the time.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
when people's, it was all part of that initial
That,
conversation.
okay, yeah,
This
that's
was-
been a while since we talked about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And then it was when they were able to write in and somebody would read it.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's how it all kind
yeah,
of
okay.
started.
Yeah, and there was a lot of, I think it's better to just be proactive on it.
Yeah.
Because districts who got caught off guard, and I'll go back to Wanakee, I don't even remember what the topic was, but they had per policy that they would read in every emailed public comment.
And
And
we
they
did as well
received-
at one time,
Yeah,
and that's why we changed it.
and they received something, I mean, off the top of my head, I think it was as high as 800 emails.
It was hours.
And they spent hours, because it was per their policy, they spent hours reading every single.
Right,
I think they blocked off like 3 hours one night. to read that. And they changed the policy, but if
yeah.
you
Hard pass.
don't have it set
Yeah.
up that way, then you're.
Learn
bound by
from other
policy.
people's mistakes.
And it's not that they didn't want to receive, I'm sure whatever that topic or issue was,
Right,
those board members probably went through and read, but is it productive use of the time to
Right.
read that out loud? Yeah. All right. Ed, any other thoughts?
Nope, I'm good with the modifications there. Thank you.
Now, Jody, so this will not be an exhibit, it's just,
It's just,
just so you guys know.
Yeah,
that's all.
so I'll just have a
Alright.
stack of them over there.
Okay. All right, these next set of policies here were policies that I think Devin Gett had asked the policy committee to consider.
Is Devin on the call?
No, he probably wasn't available today. They now you'll see when we looked at these came from the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty. They were templates from that website. You'll see there's some recommended strikes in there.
Yeah.
That's
I didn't
Jody
have-
and I reviewing and going through them, just
Yeah.
looking at what's kind of more standard with WASB or those other pieces, or our own policies and how Neola does it, you know, what we consider. So
Yeah, I didn't have any trouble with anything that was struck.
not that we had any issue with the legal analysis, it's just that
Yeah.
we don't provide legal analysis and all the other policies.
Exactly, so you wouldn't include it on these as well.
Yeah. But I also don't think we didn't really see anything. Yeah, I guess I'll just turn it over to you to discuss it however you want with it.
Well, my feeling on it is like, you know, these are some topics that are controversial in the first place. And I'm just wondering why wouldn't we wait to add these on when we're further down the road with Neola? I don't know why we're making a bunch of work projects for us when I didn't know that these were items that needed to be addressed is my question for the group.
Yeah, I had a similar question, Ed. You know, does it make sense to start adding policies like this now when we're thinking of switching over to Neola? I don't know, Jody, do you know if, like, let's take controversial issues in the classroom. Is anything like that addressed through
Yes.
Neola?
Neola has a policy.
Okay, so Neola has a policy on it, we just don't.
Correct,
All right,
And Neola's policy was similar.
it was.
it was very similar to
Yes.
this? Okay, all right, okay.
That was kind of what I think Jody went back and looked at,
Okay,
these series. Did Neola have a policy similar to it? And
okay,
I think that's where some of the recommendations were.
okay, got it.
And not that that's not a valid question to ask whether to add it or not.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just They do have
Okay,
it's not like out of left field compared to
okay. So
policies
the
that
fact that
exist.
Neola has the policy, we don't, that's probably something, we should probably look at it then.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
part of like, you know, here's other policies that we have, are you guys interested in
Yes,
adopting any of them?
okay, got it. Well, let's just take this one, since this is the one we're looking at, the controversial issues in the classroom. I didn't have a problem with it, obviously, anything that you struck. And I didn't really have a problem at all with policy and the way it read. I just was, had a question, and I don't even know what the question is, but the very last sentence on the first page, nothing in this policy shall be construed to conflict with state or federal law or the district policy on survey administration. I was like, what? What does that mean? I was confused by that phrase there, survey administration.
My interpretation was that this policy isn't to interfere with whatever policies we have on surveys.
Oh,
Now, where some people may consider surveys to be controversial,
oh,
this is,
got it.
that was my interpretation, that it's
Okay.
not to supersede or include the surveys
I just wasn't,
as a policy.
couldn't figure out what they were referring to, but, okay. Got it.
So the surveys would be guided by whatever
Yep,
survey policies we have.
Yeah, okay.
I liked it.
I liked it.
I like the policy.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of it. The Neola, having it already on Neola though, that makes it for an interesting.
Would you like to just, maybe at the next policy
Wait
committee
till
meeting,
Neola,
bring
yeah.
the Neola
Yeah.
comparison?
Yeah.
And I'm with you, I think that we're doubling up on work there. If we have
Right.
this, if it's similar in Neola already,
Right,
we're leaning, whatever, way
Yeah.
we're leaning towards it.
right.
And then it seems it would be double the work,
right,
and then expounded upon after that, so we're four
Right.
times.
so let's table this one until,
The
Bring it back to the
comparison,
next policy.
comparison with Neola, and then if it looks the same, then.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm, like I said,
Yeah, maybe these would be good examples for us to look at their policies, look at,
great call, Ed.
you know, and maybe there's purpose in it all. So maybe that's a good way to proceed if you guys concur. So
Great call, Ed.
So that would be related to this policy as well, correct, Jody?
Yes.
yeah,
Neola also has another.
I have
Now-
a bunch of questions on the next one,
Okay.
so.
So you'll see there's more changes in this, which was interesting, in the sense that Will and their template deviated from the state statute.
Oh,
So what Jody did is put in the state statute language. I don't know
Okay.
why they would deviate from the language that's in the state statute.
right,
But for example,
yeah,
the state statute says rebuff,
and,
and,
okay,
they put in reject. So that's why, and it's left in there so you can see transparently what it was, but that was the rationale, was
Yep.
just aligning it to the actual state statute.
Mhm.
I think the other factor would be then, okay, well, let's look and see what Neola
yes,
Says on it.
agreed. I would definitely like to look at this one as compared to the Neola
Yeah.
one.
But that's the reason why the changes are in here was
Yeah.
because it was what you would think you would want the policies to be.
I did not have
Aligned
any
with the state
problem with
statute.
any of the changes that were made, that you guys put in the blue or struck. I just have some questions on some of the language, and I'm somebody who likes to be specific in my language, because words mean things. And I think when you're specific, it eliminates a lot of assumptions. So maybe those things, since we need to compare it to what Neola's is, my questions maybe could just be held off until we look at the comparison on that one.
I did compare it to what we already have also.
Yeah.
Within the program,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
there were some things that were on there that we don't have currently.
okay,
I don't know if you want to mark them for when our discussion
Sure.
is
Yeah.
next time,
yeah,
but, underneath B,
okay,
that's not part of our current, program.
what is not? The
language.
whole
The whole
Maybe it'll
sentence.
be-
the whole
It's
sentence.
just not in the program. It's not that we're not doing it.
Yeah.
It's just not language that's in the program.
So it's not in our current
Yep.
policy.
And then underneath, the second section of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
Yeah.
There's a line that says the board authorizes the curriculum to include separation of students from members of the opposite sex. That's also not included, but we do it.
Yeah,
As like in 8th grade, we do it again,
Well-
like in science class, we do it again in, 4th and 5th grade, so
Yep.
like, you know.
yep. Well,
It's just
I
not
also
written
had a
there.
question about that statement too, so,
Yep.
yep,
And then the last one is underneath, parental notice. It says, the notice shall state that in the event a student is excused, that the student still receive instruction under the state statute. Ours just reads a little bit differently, but essentially means the same thing.
okay,
It says that they'll be assigned to an alternative location, and may require to complete a different assignment. So
Okay.
that language we want to, but
So-
all of this, everything that's in this policy is in our program,
okay,
except for those 3 things.
okay.
So nothing would change from a practice standpoint.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so this will be tabled, brought back like Neola and compared to our policy. Yeah, it really does. I think the sooner we get to a decision on that,
Yep.
because
Yeah.
that does kind of
Yep,
get together and want to move forward on those.
agreed.
All right. Public access to records.
This is one of our current policies, right?
So this is one where we had a separate rule. And so I
Okay.
took the language from the rule, plunked it into the policy.
Got
So
it,
you're
got it.
proposing just to merge this.
I do have some questions with regard to the policy since we're reviewing it. Number one, the school board recognizes and designates all of its records as public records and documents subject to release. I thought, Jason, in the past, there's been some things that we haven't been able to.
So what is considered a record has a
Yeah.
legal definition and a term.
Okay,
it's
so
in
do
all of
we-
our records. So for example, investigative notes aren't a part of a record,
Okay,
but the final determination or write-up would be a record. If that makes sense. Now,
yes,
records are also as required by law, that's the key, because the law dictates what's a public record,
Okay.
what's required to be released, what's
okay,
the timeline, what's in some cases, if it's like part of an employee file, they have rights to inspect or redact, or so the law really dictates,
okay, so having
What that
that
is.
phrase in there as required by law
right?
is what dictates what is a public record and it's not.
Correct.
All right, that statement of all of its records, it just kind of scared me there for a second, because I know that there's some things that we can't. But, okay,
That's a legal terminology.
Okay. all right,
But and I appreciate you bringing that up, because that could be confusing, that doesn't mean that every
right,
document is a record.
correct. Yeah, okay. Then under number 3, requests may be made orally or in writing.
That is in our rules. I
Yeah.
would recommend
I don't
in
like,
writing,
yeah,
'cause I believe that's in line with the,
I would like to strike orally out of there.
I agree with you. It should be in writing.
100%. If we're required to put things in writing, then the request needs to be made in writing as well.
on the rare occasion when I have had a request orally, I've always asked them to send me an email.
Sure.
But I think just clarifying.
Yeah, yeah.
When was this last revised? This one?
1999.
Yes.
When was the rule revised? I think that was
It's much easier to do things on email now than it was.
It's actually an exhibit.
It's an exhibit.
That says 2012.
And then in number 4, can you just explain the paragraph to me? I'm usually pretty good at understanding things, but this paragraph was confusing to me. As to what are we having to make
So-
an official notice to the public? What is being required of us there?
Yeah, so when I receive a public records request,
Yeah.
I am legally required to, within 5 business days, respond to the request. Granting, and sometimes when they're coming from like a media organization, they'll actually cite the legal statute.
Sure.
Where they'll basically say, if you're denying my request, please provide me the legal rationale as to why it's being denied. Because there's certain reasons why you can deny it.
Mhm.
But, so I'll respond in regards to whether I can fulfill the request and really whether or not what the
Yeah.
fees would be for completing that request.
Yep.
Sometimes, and the statute is that you just need to let them know whether you're going to be able to fulfill the request or not. You can indicate if you need more time to determine what the costs are, because that gets into the scope of the request. You know, how broad is it? How much time is it gonna take to locate
Right,
the records?
right.
And, so that's,
So I guess what are, okay, but it's asking, the way that I'm reading this, and I could be wrong, but. So.
yeah, I think this was written pre-email being used. I mean, people were using email then, but I
Right,
think they were probably getting a lot of hard copy written
Yeah.
requests still.
but the district, so the records and property of the district shall be included in an official notice to the public. What does that mean?
I think it should, and I just double checked this, but I think it should be included in our official annual notices document
Oh,
that we place on our website and include in our new student and annual student returning registration process, that
Okay,
parents have to acknowledge that they've read it.
okay,
It's currently not, but
okay,
I think it
apologize,
should be.
Let's double check that one and see if that one is required or if or if it being posted on the website is
Enough.
considered a part of that.
Yeah.
This was the one that I was. And again, a lot of this was probably boilerplate language prior to
Right.
websites being
right,
predominantly used as that source of information.
yeah,
Fees have not been changed since that time. I don't, I'm not recommending a change to that. We very rarely, if ever, have anyone request the photocopying. They usually just want it electronically.
right,
And so what it really comes down to is the location costs,
Yeah.
which that by statute is based on the hourly wage of the individual who's doing the locating of the record. And how much time it takes for that individual to locate.
right. Yeah, I didn't have any problem with any of that. The paragraph right above number 5, the one that was struck, it says copies of the notice shall be prominently displayed in appropriate locations throughout the district. Again, do we really need to have things posted on a bulletin board somewhere, or can we put it on a website, or?
I know at one point it was on our bulletin board out there. I don't know if it still is, but.
There used to be a lot of stuff out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Back in
so
the day.
I just think that we can change.
So let's
the
take this
language.
back
Yeah.
and review that. Maybe
Yeah.
look at Neola's too and see, it may be part of statute.
Yeah. Cause that just seems a little silly.
The more we go through these, the more I'm leaning towards Neola.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's.
Right.
Comparison, you know, we've said it several times, not compared to Neola.
Well, it's been 25 years
Right,
since we've
yeah.
looked at this policy, so, well, and anyone's
Yeah, I'm with you.
looked at it, so.
Any other thoughts on this one? Again, we'll just hold this one until we
Yeah.
go back and look
Yeah,
at.
those
Neola's.
were right.
This one is also in that same boat, so I don't know if we want to spend too much time speaking to it, but.
Yeah, I had some language changes, but let's just, again. Is the right to review professional development training materials, is that also a policy in Neola that? Or is this just this would be a completely new one?
I'd have to double check. I don't recall seeing it, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Which this would fit under the records.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering is if can it be included with that? Yeah. It would fit under there.
All right.
So,
Okay, so we'll put a pin in that one and
how about the
Maybe
next
as well.
one, Jody, do you know about the parent-coach interaction policy? Is there something like that?
so
with
this is, I would say, unique to us. It
Okay.
is something that Mr. Andre brought up, but it is a part of our co-curricular practices that we share with parents at the coaches meeting and so forth. It's just kind of a standard of practice. This would be formalizing it though as an actual
Sure, okay,
policy.
so this is one that we should talk about today.
Yeah, I think so, because this
Okay.
would, I'm sure Neola doesn't have this policy. This would
Okay.
be unique to us. Again, a practice that we do ask, and the reason why we do ask that is we've, oftentimes at co-curricular events like that, they can be heated times for individuals, not
Right.
always that they're heated at the parents, but I know my wife was at a youth basketball game this weekend and, you know, parent of a kid whose kid didn't get in, I don't know why he didn't get in, probably wasn't in practice, could have been just slipped the mind of the coach, you know, they were really upset. Parent took the kid in and left. It's a time where you're not at your best when you're emotionally charged, whatever the
Right.
reason is.
Right.
And so we ask parents, don't go and approach the coaches, especially coaches too. It's a very, could be emotionally draining
Right.
and a passionate time. And so we ask people that when you go to discuss things, sleep on it, you know, give yourself 24 hours and then have a conversation if there's a concern.
Right,
There's very rarely anything that would need to be addressed in that moment, if
right,
that makes sense.
I agree with you,
And we also, if a parent feels with coach, they're required to schedule a meeting. Parents shall have the right to schedule a meeting with the coach, athletic coach, or principal. We ask the parents to first speak with the coaches. Then if it's not resolved at that level, speak with the athletic director and the coach. Sometimes, you know, that can help on the mediation. Most concerns get resolved at that level. If
Right.
not there, then involving the principal. And then if not there, myself, if not there, school board. I've never had to, it's never gotten to my level that I can recall. It's usually handled at the athletic director, principal.
This came about, this is Jody's judge to it than, way better. But this came about because, and I sat down with John Handel and, it's come to my attention a couple of times where parents have gone at coaches.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that's absolutely unacceptable.
absolutely,
You can't go to a coach after a game.
Right.
And if it's anything more than great game coach,
right.
it's too much.
Right. So I wanna make sure that the language in here is reflective of that, because it currently isn't.
Okay,
So the statement, parents are prohibited from confronting coaches directly after a game.
confronting is the key word.
Well, let's be specific,
Okay,
because I had kids in sports for a lot of years. So as a former parent, I worked with coaches for 20 years between my 3 kids. And our experience is that coaches love to be confronted when they're being praised and say, great game, coach,
okay,
you know, like, I love what you did here, or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's be specific and say confronting them with concerns. Because I don't think we want to
Okay.
prevent parents from congratulating a coach or speaking to them at all. It's just, but that's the way the language is reading now.
Okay, I agree with
Yeah,
that.
and I would also have like, let's say, you know, I'm coaching a football game as a youth coach and I had you're watching the game in the field and you have parents up in the stands who notice that Johnny was picking on Billy, whatever, you know, kicking
Yeah.
or something. I don't mind, so maybe that's something that is a concern, but that's not something that's related to my code. It's just, hey, I don't know if you saw it, but,
Yeah,
you know,
and even in those situations, I think it's okay to address that later.
Yeah.
That's,
It's combative, is that in a combative way?
no, I would just like to, because I think coaches love being praised.
100%.
And, I would just like to,
I know the
be
intent.
specific.
What if I take this back and I give it John Handel and we come up with some more
Yeah,
specific language related, when they have a concern related to a student's, the kid's performance,
Or, yeah.
their playing time,
Okay,
their, you know, we
Yeah.
can get specific.
Yeah, I would like John Handel's opinion of this in drafting this initial draft, as well as, I don't know, pick out 3 coaches that have been with us for 10 years
yeah,
and get their input on it. They're the ones that are gonna have to be living with a document like this, and I really think it's on us to work with these individuals to get their input, because they're living and breathing it. You know, we have,
I've gone back and forth with John a couple times on this too. His fingerprint is on this.
oh, okay, awesome.
Yep. And I like your idea about the other coaches' input. I have had 2 coaches look at it.
Okay.
Not in this final draft. My original one was a little different, but yeah, John has seen it, but Jason, I'm with you about going back to,
Let's have him take it to the
Nail down
coaches
the
council. They
language.
meet
Sure.
monthly. He can have them review it and get.
yeah, and
all
Sure.
the same,
sure.
the next sentence on, you know, if a parent feels it's important to discuss concerns about a game,
Mhm.
with a coach. And then I would like, the language used for the, progression of, so coach first, then athletic director, I like that to reflect very similarly to the language that we use
Mhm.
with
Break it out
parents
so
and
it's really
teachers.
clear, yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
so that same kind of language that we use
Yeah, I
there,
agree.
rather than the words strongly suggested.
Yeah.
But this is how you're going to, you know,
I agree.
we're not strongly suggesting, we're saying this is how you're going to do it.
Like this is the first step.
Yep,
Yep.
absolutely. No
Yep,
strong.
I agree, Julia, that's,
Yep, I'm with you guys. You're very black and white today.
I'm always,
Love
I'm a very black and white person.
That's great though, especially when it comes to policy.
Yeah,
Yeah, and in no way should this limit interactions with a coach and a parent. It shouldn't limit it.
correct,
It should just, the thought behind it
Appropriate
is to
time
support the coach.
and appropriate manner.
Yep,
I think put, attending future games and or practices.
Yep.
I did have an incident this
Yes.
year with youth football that I had to address with a parent where they were
Yeah,
verbally attacking the coach at practice. Just
Yeah.
one of my kids, yeah. So
Um,
unfortunately, it does happen.
it's getting, and I see it in the youth a lot where parents are just going to coaches and those guys are volunteers.
right.
I mean, that's a whole different
Oh.
scope, but with this,
100%.
we gotta, and it's getting worse.
Yeah, we have to
So
protect our
We
coaches.
gotta protect the coaches.
Absolutely.
You know, and they're, the big thing in my mind is the coach is the coach. Let the coach do his job and coach
Yes.
and stop coming up and yelling at him that he did this, and this wrong. Do it in a constructive way.
Right. The only other sentence that I kind of wanted to review the language on is, in the 4th paragraph down, second to last sentence. Parents are prohibited from confronting a coach at practice regarding any issues or concerns. Now, concerns, yes, but any issue? How about, my son's not gonna be able to be at the next practice because, well, that,
I think it gets down more to the.
I don't wanna use I don't like to
the
use.
clarifying the term confronting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does, but the
Yeah.
word, when we are absolute in our language and any issues,
Uh-huh.
to me,
And-
that's a little restrictive.
And I think the language, yep, I think we can work on the language, and also the language tone, like Grammarly will
Right.
give me a little rating on the tone. like,
Yep.
my smiley face, grimace face, or angry face on some of that. So I think we can modify some of the terminology,
Yeah,
so it's not.
And
like-
I guess
Just
that's
put
what
New
I'm,
Jersey on the top of it.
Yeah.
I guess that's where I'm coming from is I wanna make sure that we're not sending a message to parents
You're-
that you are not allowed to talk to this coach at any point, at any time.
I totally get what you're saying, Adam, because I did trainings out in New Jersey, New York, and the admin would come to me and they'd say, hey, you tell these teachers if they're 1 minute late for the training, they're not getting accounted for their minutes towards their PD time. Because they had to do certain clock hours. And they're like, that's what the union agreed to, they better be there. I'm like, I think that would be better coming from you, that's not my ass.
I'm working on the assertiveness, I'm trying to bring it down a little bit.
Most of the time you filter these things. Jake.
Well, they would sit there yelling at each other.
Yeah, that's how I did the GC, I talked to my mother, it's like, even my own mom, and it's this, and like.
You gotta remember,
Normal
my
Tuesday.
career has been in PR, so.
I'm a nightmare, the way that I speak.
Okay. So, all right, we'll take that. We've got those suggestions noted, and then I like the idea of taking, I like the coaches having ownership over that.
sure.
Oh,
I appreciate you bringing it up.
yeah,
because it
no,
is
I
an
100%
area
agree, we definitely need to have something to protect.
preferred, and I think they'll appreciate having that. All right. That is all we had on for the agenda, except for the closed session. We do have one early graduation request.
Okay.
So we need a motion to adjourn to closed session to fulfill that.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
I
All right.
All right.